The commandment that says not to covet or desire whatever belongs to your neighbor. I remember Pastor Matt saying to Paul and me that at our age, there was not anything that we probably coveted anymore. I have been reflecting on Matt's statement. In one way, Matt is correct. I really do not covet others' property at this stage in my life, although in my younger years that may have been so, as I desired, like many others, to achieve the American dream of success, which includes money, property, and status, something that is instilled in us at a very young age. In and of itself, there is nothing wrong with desiring all those things. But when we are propelled into investing ourselves too much into the pursuit of those, it can drive us, or at the very least, impede us in developing a right relationship with God and others. I believe we have heard that the Ten Commandments are all about relationships, with the most important relationship being our relationship with God. Hence, the first 4 commandments deal with that relationship, and the 6 last commandments deal with our relationships to others. God says to us, "If I am your God, whom you believe leads you in your daily life, just as I led the Israelites out of bondage to safety, then you will keep my commandments." These commandments provide us the framework to live life as God's people who care for one another so much that we want only what is best for each other. I believe commandment number 10, "Thou shalt not covet or desire," is one we need to pay attention to, because it is when we covet we fail to live the other 9. Our relationship with God and others gets out of whack. I am not the only one who thinks this. In my study of this sermon, this idea was lifted up by other scholars, one of them being Chris Hedges in his book, Losing Moses on the Freeway. In that book, he states that the 10 Commandments are not to protect us from evil, but to protect us from committing evil. They help us to keep in check the dark impulses in ourselves, which can lead to even darker impulses that have terrible consequences. Where do our dark thoughts arise? Within ourselves. Jesus reminds us of this in the Gospel of Mark in the 7th chapter, in a discussion he is having about the dietary laws with his disciples. Jesus shares these words, saying, "It is from the inside, from the human heart, that evil thoughts come. Sexual sins, thefts, murders, adultery, greed, evil actions, deceit, unrestrained immorality, envy, insults, arrogance, and foolishness. All of these evil things come from the inside and contaminate a person in God's sight." In other words, we think on these things before we act on them. J. Edgar Park in the Interpreter's Bible says, the Hebrew word covet means to indulge in thoughts which tend to lead to actions named in the commandments. He goes on further to say the Greek translation of the same word means to set one's heart upon a thing. This is what coveting is all about. Our coveting begins within our thoughts and our hearts as we nurture our desire for something. Remember, it's okay to desire something and use it as motivation to reach our end goals, to live a better life. But only as long as we do no harm to others, or even yourself in the process. Remember, according to Jesus, the greatest 2 commandments of all, which fulfill all of God's commands, are to love God with all your heart, mind, strength, and soul, and to love your neighbor as yourself. This brings me back to Pastor Matt's words about Paul and me not coveting anything at this age in our lives. I do covet things in my life, but the things that I covet now are more abstract than material. But even abstract longings can lead one down a dark path to discontentment if one is not careful. Let me share with you one simple example from my life. I covet or desire family time. And sometimes I lament about how little time we have together, even though I know my children and their children have their own lives to live. Plus, not everyone lives close by. On my best days, I am okay with this, but there have been times when I have tried to gather us together as a family, and my children and my grandchildren inform me it's just not doable in their schedules. And sometimes, instead of accepting this, I begin to grumble and grouse, and then I find anger creeping into myself. And I say to myself, I do not understand why they are not interested in spending time with mom or dad and grandma and grandpa. If I'm not careful, I could destroy or murder our relationship by becoming vocal about the situation. It is at those times that I try to remember the words of the Apostle Paul found in the 4th chapter of Philippians, to think on the good things in our relationship and to be content with the wonderful relationship we really have and all the time that we do spend together. By doing this, I do not allow my desire to rise up and to overwhelm me and to cause me to say something that might destroy the wonderful relationships we do have. I choose to use my free will to guide my heart and thoughts to the positives of our relationship in order to abate the temptations to go down the path that could kill our family relationships if I acted upon my negative thoughts. As we grow older, we do value our time with our loved ones more than anything else. If we covet that time too obsessively and act on some of our feelings in a negative way, it can destroy our family relationships. Now, this example may seem trivial to some, but it is very real to some families. But it does drive across the point of the need for us to be aware of how our desires might lead us to ruin relationships with others and with God. Once again, there is nothing wrong with desiring good things in our life, but when it causes harms to others, you have disobeyed God's command to love others as you love yourself, and to love God with all your heart, mind, and soul. So my challenge this morning, as we prepare to leave this place, as we look around in the world at all of the issues that are before us, I would ask that you ponder about the things you desire in your life. And as you ponder, are they leading you to self-destruction? Are they leading you to destroy others? Or are they leading you to help others to live life? For it is God's desire that we all have a good and abundant life. And if we look at that as our aim, as we covet and desire things in life, my friends, this world will be a better place. Amen.